Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creating a New World, Episode 18. I'm your host, Bill Hunsaker, and this show is a show about the 12 Visions world, a world of wealth, health, peace, love, and prosperity. Let me introduce my panelists. First of all, on my screen, directly to my left, we have Sage Katakura. Thank you for joining the show, Sage.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Okay, and right next to him we have Larry Johnson. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Hey, great to be here, Bill. Looking forward to it.
Great. And next to him we have Harry Dolgen. Welcome to the show, Harry.
Thanks, Bill. I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad Sage and Larry are on.
Yes, and I'm very happy to be here too, and look forward to talking about the 12 Visions world. And we'll do that first. We want to open up this segment of the show by reading the 12 Visions. Anybody want to step in and do that? Otherwise, I'll reach back and grab my Visions book. Go right ahead.
Okay, let's go with the visions here. Vision 1, become the person you were meant to be. Vision 2, live the life you were meant to live. Vision 3, feel extraordinary every day. Vision 4, slow down aging permanently. Vision 5, land the job of your dreams. Vision 6, build the business of your passions. Vision 7, experience the love of your life. Vision 8, have the body you always envied. Vision 9, become a genius of society. Vision 10, have everything you ever wanted, be it the free-to-soar geniuses and super technologies. Vision 11, ride a prosperity wave to riches, via falling prices and soaring buying power. Vision 12, enjoy nearly perfect health via soaring medical technologies and falling prices.
Thank you, Sage.
Sure.
That sounds wonderful, and that's the kind of world I want to live in, but unfortunately it doesn't exist yet. But we can create it together, and that's the whole point of this show, is to talk about this world that we can create, and also later talk about how we can go about creating it. Today we're going to talk about technology in the 12 Visions world. Basically, once we get into the 12 Visions world, we're supposed to have a technological revolution where we have rapid advances in all areas of life, just like we've had rapid advances in computer technology up to this point, to the point where you can hold basically a computer in your hand, and even most recently wear one on your wrist.
I want one of those.
And so I'm going to start off, talk a little bit about what I see in the future. Some of this has already been suggested by Mark Hamilton, and some of this is ideas I've come up with. I think the primary focus of all creators, inventors, is going to be protecting people. I know I'm going to be looking, and now I'm even thinking about ways we can protect people. And some of the things that Mark suggests in this area are jewelry that includes ultra miniature, what are basically ultra miniature airbags, like the airbags you have in your car, which will basically detect if you're falling and deploy the airbags so that it cushions your fall. I think that's an amazing idea, and I look forward to seeing that. I'd wear jewelry if it would do that for me.
You've got to afford it first.
Yeah, and that's the other side of this. You know, we think about something like that in the world we're living in now, and we think, oh, it's just going to be too expensive for anybody to afford it. The amazing thing is, in the 12 Visions world, it's going to start out, everyone can afford it, and it's just going to keep getting cheaper and cheaper as people continue to create new ways to manufacture things. I mean, I can see the recently developed 3D printer going through a renaissance to where everybody can have one in their house, and they can just, buy a blueprint and create whatever they want. Maybe you have to buy the electronic innards, but you can you can make the outer shell yourself, and you can make it in whatever shape you want. You know, I can see all these kind of things, and we can reach a point where we see things that look like science fiction things, like the Star Trek replicator, where you just tell it what you want and it creates it for you.
It reminds you of the 3D bots they have now, where you'll see in Staples. I was just walking through Staples, and the 3D bot, it'll carve out any shape, any model of what you're looking for. But that's just the beginning. Just the beginning.
Yeah. And it'll just grow from there. Whatever you can imagine can eventually be created. Okay, I'd like to hear anyone chime in with your ideas and thoughts on this.
Larry, Sage.
Well,
If not, I'll go. I'm probably the fastest of the group here. In my, you know what I'd like to see? Believe it or not, I might have mentioned it on an earlier show. When you're driving in an automobile, right? I rather just sit back and eat and have the car drive for me. Right? As silly as that sounds.
That's awesome.
And if I'm late for an exam, I can have my study from my book while the car's doing all the driving for me. That's what I'd like to see. What do you think about that, guys?
I've wanted that for so long, and so many times I'll get drowsy while driving because I'm deprived of a little sleep. And if I could just sit back and sleep in the back, I'd be so much fresher.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a safety thing, and of course that's being developed right now, but it's so slow because it's being hampered by government regulation and interference. I mean, I'm not advocating that we just have people throw these cars on the road, but right now they're being so cautious that it's like, and then every time some minor mishap happens, the media blows it out of proportion and makes it sound like, oh, these cars are going to kill everybody. You know,
more fear. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
Hi, Bill.
Yes.
You know, we being NeoThink members and study the writings of Frank R. Wallace and Mark Hamilton, you know, we uphold consciousness and in human life, you know, as the highest form in the universe. And whatever will preserve that and sustain, you know, that physical life is what we are all looking to do. And so when you start talking about the technology, when you start talking about like nanotechnology, where, you know, you will have these computer chips in the body. So when something go wrong inside your body, you know, with any organ, it will go right there and repair it. You know, one form, you know, of this technology. And, you know, and the technology with the prices falling would be affordable. That's why the platform always make all the people rich, including the poor. You know, because as the prices fall, technology advances through the geniuses, which make it affordable for everybody. You know, the technology that won't let a plane fly into a building. You know, because that technology is so advanced that all costs to protect human life, at all costs. We know that creating this new world that Bill is so passionate about talks about moving into the 12 Visions world. You understand, where human life is the first and foremost in terms of preserving that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right now, where we at, we see that life is like reported in one segment of a second that has been demised or lost, and oh yeah, in the ball game last night, blase, blase, blase. You know, so it's almost like it's accepted. We don't accept that. It's unnatural.
Yeah.
The technology is going to be there to change that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Larry. And not only do we consider human life precious, but everything that supports it. So all, you know, technological advances will also be geared toward preserving life on our planet, in addition to to preserving and protecting human life, because all of that supports us, and it's all precious, and it's also beautiful to see and wonderful. But nowadays people have a cynical attitude toward it, like it's resources to be exploited, whereas to me it is resources, but it's not there to be exploited. It's to be preserved and protected, so that so that we can have those resources for a long time.
It's a wide scope way of looking at it. I agree, and I think that utilized is a good word too, of conscious beings, and we utilize things in life, and we try to make them better. If you look at a lot of landscaping, I'm just amazed by when you get industrialists that have a vision in a regular plot of land. You'll see so many great works out there where they try to take the nature, the natural surroundings, and mix it with a building that can serve a purpose for other conscious beings. And it's this is just extrapolating that to the nth degree, and having all the things that we're going to have. I think that a specific thing would be, I have family members that are either diabetic or have multiple sclerosis, diseases they say that can't be cured. And so many people in the world, when I look into it, so many people are dealing with these things, and they have clinical research going on, clinical trials that take a long time. The regulations cost so much money to get those done, and when you're dealing in that situation, you're testing of these things to see how they're working and how they're not working. It becomes such a long, drawn-out process, and you're not getting lives are being lost every day for these things. And if you had those diseases, you'd probably be. I can understand how somebody could be very upset about this current situation or want more. And the one major way is just sustaining this physical body that we're in some way. And stem cells, they're advancing stem cells now so big. They have the diabetes type 1. That's a problem where your pancreatic beta cells are getting attacked by your immune system, because your immune system for some reason is so off track that it starts attacking the pancreatic cells. I think you can solve that naturally, personally, but conscious beings have the ability to surpass nature, and they can create solutions that can solve that for you easier. And if we had some way to replace those pancreatic cells faster, you could have all those diabetic ones that cannot have carbs. They have to watch carbs so carefully. They could suddenly have carbs and sugar, and that's just it'd be so cool as a conscious being. Removing limitations, to me, I think, is such an awesome experience, and you shouldn't have such limitations. Those would be ended from this advancing of technology that we're talking about, which is really cool.
Good point. Good point. No, guys, what happened with heart disease? It started, heart disease and cancer, in 1980. So I'm a little skeptical about where our money's going. I don't know how much of it is going for research and development. And even in the research and development, it might take 6 or 7 years before the FDA approves a certain medicine.
Right.
So I'm very skeptical, because these are diseases like cancer occurred in the 80s and 70s. We should have had cures already for most of them. So, like I said, where is the money going?
Well, I think one thing that is really hampering that is the litigation and regulation that's really holding back the genes. Most of these diseases, without these regulations, within, I would say, 2 to 5 years can be solved.
Yeah.
Geniuses would come forward, if they weren't being hampered to solve, these major diseases that people are confronted with. But I think that's why we talk about creating this new world, where when you talk about real freedom, real honest freedom, you're talking about where, people can live and let live and create unimaginable technology that we can't even probably sit here and imagine.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what's being hampered. I mean, we live in the most advanced society that's ever existed right now, and you look at, like, you know, the things that are being created at this point. I mean, we talk about nanotechnology. I mean, there are people who are doing it. You know, they're doing it right now. You know, those technology, but just think how much faster if he wasn't being held back.
Yeah.
Right. And needlessly too, when you look at those regulations and the litigation, to the people that are having diseases and things and are waiting for cures, why do they need to be protected? The solutions, their life right now is really tough, and there's an expiration date that they're always facing that could be their last day, you know.
Right.
And until that ending day, they're also not exactly, they're very limited, a lot of them. Why should we hamper them from choosing voluntarily to be to test new theories, to test new ideas, to test new technology? I think that freedom should be there.
Exactly.
Then, let the market decide. And
That's the proper word too, is freedom.
yeah.
People should have the freedom to choose what they want to try when they're faced with a serious disease. And now the government steps in between and says, no, you know, you can't try this. I mean, it's the same way across the board. The government says you can't buy this, you can't make this, you can't, you know, and it should be about freedom and responsibility. Not about everybody's guilty until they prove themselves innocent, which is what most, over-regulated industries, you spend so much time and money proving that you're not doing something wrong that, that it becomes, it's not cost effective to create what you're trying to create.
Right. But we're the pioneers, and in the meantime, we're if everybody gets these concepts, everybody gets that idea and doesn't put up with it anymore, because we're all dealing with just agreements on a grand scale, an agreement to let the people let certain people that are running this country or are in places of power where they can do things or make decisions that can restrict people or give them more freedom. The more we get this idea, this understanding of individual freedom and the benefits that it will lead to, and not being fooled about that illusion that it's going to hurt society more. They're protecting society by having those regulations. You're talking about those benefits, all these benefits that we've talked about. We're sitting on it, It's so exciting.
You listen to all these talking heads, and when you hear them on these different talk shows, they're basically whatever comes up, their answer is always a new law or a new regulation that they think should be instituted. And that's not the answer. That's just creating another illusion, and it's really us showing the ruling class how to keep sitting on top of our heads.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
They use that, something tragic happened, but then at the same time, as the falling prices, and you look around, prices are falling, and technology is soaring, and there will be technology going to always be moving forward. It's just that it takes so long because it's being held back. Like, how long has they been raising money for all these different, like, breast cancer and heart disease, and they've been raising money, and then when you really look and put a microscope on it and look at where the money really goes in terms of
where's the evidence? You don't know it's going to research, Larry.
Well,
you don't know that.
A lot of it goes to administrative fees, getting by, and this here, and by the time you get to the research, there's nothing left out of that dollar.
And that's it. And
that's my complaint. That's what I'm concerned about. Right?
Yeah, the directors of these organizations should not be making six-figure salaries. That's the first thing. Then the next thing is if they are really trying to do this, then the government steps in, and every time you turn around, you got to pay a fee. You got to pay, you got to pay to have paperwork done. You got to, that's why things are so slow, because, all the costs associated and artificial costs created by the government, and also by paying people these outrageous salaries.
See, the thing is, I don't really care about them making those 6 figures. I don't care. Let them make that. The problem is, open the market up and make it really true freedom where other people can compete and people can see results. And then those people who are making them 6 figures, if they ain't being competitive, if they ain't showing results, if they ain't advancing, then people will see through that illusion and go, hey, I'm not giving my money to that. They ain't doing nothing but sitting on it. Let them make that money. When you open up the true freedom, you don't have to worry about that, because it become a free enterprise. It becomes competitive, and those, whether it's for protection or whether it's for advancement and a cure, the true freedom allows whatever that is, and the market to dictate what's going to be around. You be making that big money through an illusion, and guess what? What we call it, the white collar hoax.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of a sudden that color starts to change, because people will see through that and says, hey, you've been doing this for 10 years. Now we got some other companies out here who's competing for that same business, and they're getting results. That's where I'm going to put my money.
That's it. The market, let the market decide.
Right.
And the track record of the AMA, I think it's the American Medical Association, ever since they were founded, and grew since 1940s when Royal Rife was developing certain devices that he believed using frequency could destroy disease. AMA was trying to battle him, and it's a publicly funded organization that grew. If you look at it, it's grown now. 2015, the Cancer Association, National Cancer Society, they've raised so much money over since the 60s and 70s, along with the AMA since the 1940s, and we have more cancer. Just the results, looking just objectively at the results, the cancer rates are higher than ever. That means it's not, that solution's not working. All that money, the funneling of the money, it's just we're donating more and we're getting less results. That's just right there. It's obviously something's wrong.
We all know that the pharmaceutical companies are staying in business to keep people sick.
Yeah.
All right? We know that. If there's a cure, then they're out of business. So, that's a known fact.
You know what's really, really funny about it, and I laugh every time I see it? It's like when you watch, and Harry brought about pharmaceutical companies, they tell you exactly what they're giving you, and they tell you exactly what it is it's going to do to you and all the side effects. They tell you.
Right.
They don't hold nothing back.
Right.
Problem is, people don't use discernment. They go with that, because we are trained differently. When we look at it, we go like, wait a minute, hold on. If it's going to do all that to get why would I do that? Why would I take that? It's going to have 25 side effects. It's going to knock me down, drag me around.
And that's what you're going to die from. Not the disease. Not the disease that it's meant to help.
Right.
You know what? But I'm going to try that, because it's been a while. I'm kind of bored. I'm going to try it. See, some people I think they're so, looking for stimulation. They'll do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the stimulation is the thing that really, whether it's a politician looking for stimulation from being in the power and using unlimited money, that at their disposal, to the drug companies using, pharmaceuticals to really, push them on people, and they'll tell you, they don't hold back. But the problem is, people do not listen with discernment and say, hey, I ain't gonna take that. Why would I take that? And it's gonna, it's gonna help me like aspirin. I always hear people say, well, if you're having a heart attack, take an aspirin. I guess it thins out your blood, and it probably does do that.
Mhm.
You know, if you're having a heart attack. But then over the side effects of that, you understand, over a period of time,
Right.
has a whole nother probably maybe 20 more different side effects.
Yeah.
Save you for now, but later on you come up with all other kind of chronic ailments.
Yes, and this was known about, and to such an extent that it was parodied back in the 80s by Saturday Night Live. I mean, they had a fake commercial where it said, "Take this drug for itchy eyes. Side effects include blah, blah, blah. Take this drug for these side effects. Side effects include blah, blah, blah. Take this drug for those side effects." And so on, till they went through about 10 or 15 drugs. You know, so they were aware of this all the way back then, but the majority of people just don't pay attention to it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
They
they don't care. They care, but they figure they know better than they do.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
that's why they're so important when we talked about those 12 visions, integrate those into your life, because once you really have the passion for life and living and really develop that passion, then everything you do is toward having a happier life. And that's what's missing in society now. People are not living the life they was meant to live, so they're not happy.
Absolutely right.
I always say people on a Monday say, "Hey, how you doing?" "Oh, can't wait to Friday." Say, "Ask them on a Friday, hey, how you doing?" "Thank God it's Friday."
Yeah. That's
You understand? That's, you know, they're because they're in that rut that we
Yeah.
talk about. You understand? They're not living the life. It's like a contradiction. It's like every morning you wake up to do something that you don't love.
yeah.
What if everybody woke up every morning and everything they did is what they love, and they woke up with a smile?
This
That's
world would
the
be
12 Visions world.
Yes.
That's right. And that, on a personal level, that takes a lot of just going for it and realizing self-evaluation and thought and feeling. And you know, but that's a great point, Larry. I love hearing it, and you don't hear about it out there. You hear about getting a job and getting by, but a lot of these problems that we talk about stem from that.
And that's what you're
there's
taught.
very few people who are living the life that they want to live.
Yeah.
And you know, because if you look at certain people who wants to maybe climb mountains, they have a passion for that.
Yeah.
Or those that want to jump off the side of a mountain with a parachute, they have a passion for that. They can't wait to do it, or jump out of an airplane, or somebody wants to go and save lives in another part of the country. That's a passion. But majority of people cannot follow their passion because they're trapped. They're trapped.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, everyone. We're gonna move on to the next segment that I like to call "Where's the Force?" And I've thought about this. I had a couple of ideas, but I'm gonna go with marriage laws. Sage, where's the force?
Marriage laws. Well, the obvious one is just that you can't marry somebody from the opposite sex in the somebody from the same sex in some states. And right there, if somebody chooses to do that, what's the holdup from them wanting to do that, you know? And I believe I'm an upholder in individual freedom to the nth degree, as long as you're not hurting somebody else's individual freedom. So that's everybody's choice. And right there, any type of marriage that you want is your choice. But then there's also the laws and litigations for controlling marriages. Not controlling marriages, but even like the laws of how if you divorce a man and a woman, or I think any parties divorced, the one party gets half of the other person's assets. And I just wonder about that rule. I understand why it's in place, but it should be everybody's choice. And I guess it is. It's a law there, but it's a law that people have to agree to when they get married. And what if they want to get married without that? They have to go out of their way and do a prenuptial agreement, which is in their power to do. So I guess there's freedom there, and it's making more work maybe for them. But those are some forces at work in marriage.
Okay, Larry, where's the force?
Well, Bill, when you talk about the institution of marriage, the force comes in where they don't allow two individuals who decide to be together, whether it's a man and a woman or two people, and the force comes in where they actually make it not able to leave that union, where either one spouse will harm the other one through force. And the other thing is, these courts are set up to usually against the man in a lot of these, where they force them to pay, like, for example, you're paying child support, okay, and say you get a ticket, okay, and you get locked up because that ticket turned into a warrant. Now you lose your job. Now the court comes after you to put you in jail because you don't have a job to pay the child support that they have forced you to pay, rather than voluntarily allowing you to keep your job so you could support your family. Whether you are in a relationship or not, that you should not be forced to do that, because force, it really has a double effect on you.
Mm-hmm.
To the extent, a lot of times when women want to leave out of these relationships, we've seen here in New Jersey recently, where it's been, the force within the family structure, it went to the point of people being killed, and that comes from the way that the whole system is set up, where I go back to it, no real freedom. That force in those relationships, down to the force on the kids. For example, they want to make a law now where if you leave your kid in the car for a second, you run in a store and you come out, they want to take it and put you in jail. That through force. They don't allow you to raise your own kid. The state wants to dictate to you how you raise your own kid. Whether you decide listen, I grew up, and I remember when one got old enough to watch the other one, because the parents had to go to work. They couldn't be there, but they knew you was old enough to stay there. You understand? The state or the government should never come in with force, and now they can come in and say, well, you are unfit parent, through these different agencies, and take your kid through force from you.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
I
agree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Larry. Harry, where's the force?
Where's the force? You know something, Bill? I'm married for 10 years. And if I had it to do over again, I'd like to go to Vegas and get married by an Elvis impersonator. but let me tell you something. But obviously, the force is you have to have a marriage license. You pay the government for the licensing fee. Okay? I had wished when I had my ceremony, we spent a lot of money. If the Justice of the Peace said, is there anybody in the audience who believes this couple shouldn't be married? I wish somebody would have gotten up and said, yeah, I do. Then I wouldn't be in this predicament. But no, that basically the government, there's no freedom. Freedom's taken away. You're paying the government licensing fees and all that. And it's documented in public record. That's basically it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and for me, the force in marriage laws, and the interesting thing is, even though, we had a Supreme Court decision recently that, that said you couldn't, limit marriage rights to heterosexual couples, that, that any two people that wanted to get married could get married. You see the backlash. You see you know, certain areas where people are just saying, oh, you know, they're wrong and I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And that shows that, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, that's why force is wrong, because you can't force people to do something they don't want to do. You know, and also the problem is when you talk about marriage, marriage means different things to different people.
Right.
You know, for a lot of people, marriage means just two people love each other and want to be together. For other people, it means family. It means you want to raise children. And not necessarily conceive children, because you can adopt children and raise them. But it means you want to raise children, but, you know, some people, you know, want to limit it to only two people who can conceive a child, you know. And then they give exceptions for people because they're infertile, but then they don't give exceptions to people because, you know, they're the same sex and they can't do that, you know. You know, and also, you know, once you limit marriage, because of the laws, marriage come with certain rights. You know, if you're not considered the spouse of someone, you can't visit them in the hospital. And you don't automatically inherit from them if they pass away. You know, I mean, even with these, I forget the term, where they have non-marriage relationships. They have a law in New Jersey for that also, but they don't have the same rights as people who are in a traditional marriage under those laws, or they didn't until now. I mean, that, to me, that's the biggest thing, is forcing people apart, people who have chosen to be together. And that's
common law marriage, Bill?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about I can't remember the term now. Civil union, I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
But those people who were given a quote-unquote civil union didn't have the same rights as people who had a traditional marriage, you know.
Right.
So it was almost like a separate but equal, and as we know in the past, when you talk separate but equal, it's not really equal, you know.
You remember that old line, Bill, that old joke? Marriage is an institution. Those who are in want to get out, and those who are out are trying to get in. So you can't win either way. You know.
Yeah, and, you know, to me, it's, you know, to me, a marriage is just a contract between two people, and it can be a verbal contract.
Right.
But unfortunately, there's so many laws and rules and everything, and we've gotten to it, you know, and I agree, anytime people want to get divorced, in most places they favor the woman, even if she's the reason for the divorce, even if she's you know, is actually dangerous for the kids. You know, and then, you know, when you're in nowadays, most everybody works. Very rarely now do you have, you know, unless you have a man who's making a six-figure plus salary, you very rarely have the wife who's staying in the home and just being a mother and homemaker. Most of the time they work, but still the laws haven't changed, and when you get divorced, they still have to, the husband still have to pay, you know, whatever the word, alimony. That's the word. The husband still has to pay alimony, even though the wife is perfectly capable of supporting herself.
Right.
I mean, I kind of support the idea of child support, but not alimony, unless, you know, you actually have a situation where the wife is not capable of supporting herself. You know.
Good point.
You know, businesses could replace all that, all the litigations that you're talking about for marriage, license, the fees you're going to pay. It's a lot of complex issues, but businesses provide solutions for complex issues in so many industries. And they could give you all types of plans for your type of marriage that you want to apply for. And people could choose. The market could decide what people want. And like you're saying, I agree the same way. It seems like you have very simple ideas of what a marriage is, and I do too. And it's between me and the person I choose. And what I would choose is something nice and simple. I want to live life, and I want that just to be handled where it's strictly, not strictly, but I have a certification, so it's official in that sense. And that's my choice. But you could have businesses providing all types of choices out there,
Hmm.
or marriage types and situations and the legalities after it.
Hmm. And people should be able to end their relationship just by choosing to, and shouldn't have to automatically go to court in order to end their relationship.
And if you had freedom, people could choose that.
Right. And if you don't agree on who owns what, then you should go to arbitration rather than to court. You know, and have a disinterested neutral party help you decide and help you understand, you know, what things belong to one person, what things belong to the other person, what things they own in common, and then how you want to dispose of those things that you own in common.
I feel like a lot of this leads to self-responsibility. And,
yeah, absolutely.
And like all these things, people, I fear that sometimes people, if you take away all these regulations for a period of time, if people don't take self-responsibility, they'll be like, well, life stinks. It's worse now than it was before when we had more state involvement doing what we were doing. And that wake up the light bulb has to go off, that you have to take self-responsibility. And if you do that long term, also pretty short term, the benefits will show up and the cost savings will show up and the surplus will show up.
Yeah, the bottom line is you either have freedom and responsibility, or you have coercion, force, and no responsibility.
Yeah, which do you want? Yeah, yep. Two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll move on to the next segment of the show, where we talk about how we're going to create the new world, and we're going to continue with our discussion of the national platform for the 12 Visions Party, who are running the 12 Visions movement. And we're going to pick up in the section called Common Sense and Split Run. Who would like to volunteer to read that? I will if nobody else wants to.
Well, I got it.
Okay, go right ahead.
Harry,
go right ahead.
This is the national platform. It's called Common Sense and Split Run. It says, in 1975, America's problems were complicated and confusing. Most Americans
Excuse me, Harry, that was 1775. Go ahead.
What did I say?
1975.
That's because I wish it was 1975. In 1775, America's problems were complicated and confusing. Most Americans did not want to go to war with England. The situation was too complex for Americans to get clear answers and conviction. In January 1776, as a response to the king's abuse of power, Thomas Paine published Common Sense. His pamphlet began metaphorically in a simple place with a handful of persons. Then a few more persons arrived and civilizations began. Seeing civilization in its most simple state at its origin cuts through the complexities, and common sense shines through. That little pamphlet brought America together to stand united against the King of England. Similarly, today, America's problems are complicated and confusing. The financial collapse starting in 2008 has Americans scared and confused. The situation is too complex for Americans to get clear answers to the problems, including their feelings on socialistic government intervention. In January of 2009, as a response to the complex financial crisis and the government's confusing abuse of power, I completed Split Run. My pamphlet began with the hypothetical split run, the A-B split between the existing control, Split A America, versus the test split B, Hamilton America. Hamilton America starts fresh and free of the political entanglements of America. Seeing Hamilton America in its most simple state, at its origin, cuts through the complexities, and common sense shines through. This little pamphlet can bring society together to stand united against bogus government and virulent rule of man. Remember, proper government is protection only, backed by rule of flawless law, called the prime law. Wonderful.
Yes, and this is the whole point of the part of the platform that we've been reading. It's just to show, exactly how government overregulation and too many laws is ruining our civilization and how things are going to continue to get worse and worse unless we make a big change. And that's what we're talking about on this show, and that's what I want, is to make a big change that will open things up to prosperity. That's the whole point, and that's what we're doing here.
That's it. That's why I'm here too, Bill. You mentioned about the marriage laws and how the wife and the men nowadays work unless a man makes a six-figure income, and it makes me think about what was the difference years ago when a man would generally work and the woman would support, stay home and not make an income. And it's like it shows to me the inefficiencies of the society, and you're not making as much anymore or able to do as much with as little as you were back then. Maybe that's not true, but it got my mind working on that. And I think that what we're talking about here, I know, is going to lessen the costs of living, so that those that whole paradigm, the whole society won't have those. They won't have to live life and adjust based on the smothering bottom line when things are very inefficient from force in the marketplace. And that's what the new world we're talking about, is just having your dollar go so much farther. If you're just looking at it as a monetary sense, this is from the financial side, and a lot of beautiful things on the emotional side, the spiritual side, come from that. On the other side, you could look at all those things too, but on the monetary side, it's just you're talking about a very profitable and safe world, because wealth is taken out of the equation. Everybody can do more with less.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
And, yes, and I agree with that 100%. Of course, the reason that we need both parents working nowadays is because nowadays, if you add together taxes, government fees, and higher prices due to government overregulation, over half your income is gone before you make it.
Absolutely.
So now you need two people to clear the same amount of money and buying power that one person was able to do in the 50s and earlier.
Right, and that's leading us, like you're saying, the world is going to go into a worse place. It's happening. That's the reality. It's you're stimulated by your TV shows, and life is very stimulating constantly. We're being bombarded by information today, but amongst it all, most people are worn out and tired because they're trying to keep up with this paradigm that's going on right now, and it can escalate, and that's the thing we're trying to offset here. And all we got to do is realize what's going on and realize what we can do to change it and start moving in the other direction.
I mean, you want to see where we're headed, just look at Greece.
Exactly. So.
Yeah, I mean, they just had here, I saw where Wall Street had a problem,
Yeah.
Right. And it's like living in a house of cards.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of it's just a matter of time when reality will reassert itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so important that the biggest get-rich movement in the history of mankind, and we talk about the TVP, the 12 Visions Party, which will move society to another dimension. And as many people can learn about the 12 Visions Party and read about our platform that Harry read from, you understand, they'll become aware, because there is no reason for poverty. I mean, I look at, they're talking about saving Atlantic City, and they want to open it up to casinos in other parts of the state. But the point is, competition don't need to be limited, and they don't need to be regulated by no government.
Right.
Regulating it. It needs to be open. When you start talking about, in reality, of making all the people rich, including the poor, when you could see a place where they transform, and it's all wealthy people in an area that has been transformed and vibrant and making money, people are going to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Atlantic City could be that, but you have that one side holding on to all the money, and then you got that contradiction of all those poor people. When you really open up a wider perspective, as the TVP has said, about making all the people rich, including the poor, and then you could, when that really opens up through TVP, and people get a glimpse of that through a protection-only budget, where the government is focused on that, of protecting the citizen and then allowing the rest of society to move forward, people, once they get a glimpse of it, they're not going to want to go back the other way.
Yep.
Yep.
It's gonna be awesome.
Yep. It's gonna be wonderful. We're gonna go ahead and move on and wrap up the show at this point. I just want to talk briefly about a section that we haven't been getting to because we've in the past few shows let things run long, and that's basically what the people viewing this show can do. If the first thing is understand what we're talking about, and if you agree with it, then talk about it, tell other people about it. That's first and foremost, and tell other people about the show so they can see what we're talking about, and they can decide, if it's something they agree with. The main thing we're talking about here is just showing this to as many people as possible, and then letting them make up their own minds about it. We're not here trying to push an agenda on anybody. We're not here trying to coerce anybody into doing what we're talking about. We're just here saying we think this is a great idea, and we want, and we just want you to think about it, and look at the possibilities. I see the possibilities as endless, as things just getting bigger and better, as opposed to now when things are getting narrower and smaller and worse. Every year the dollar you earn can buy less. And it's been that way for a long time. And it seems like recently it's gotten worse. In a few areas, prices might fluctuate. Gas has gone up and gone down and gone up and come down, but average, it's still more than it was 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's not becoming less. Mm-hmm. Not really. It's just going up and down and up and down, And in the meantime, everything you look at in media is just a distraction. This whole flap about the Confederate flag, it's just a big distraction. But the point I'm trying to make is, we're just here to show you an idea. We're just here to say, we think this is great. Look at it, think about it, and if it's something you agree with, then go on and talk to people. And then if you're interested, you can become more involved. You can become involved in the 12 Visions movement at every area, from just if you see a 12 Visions party candidate, voting for them, or you can become more involved and contribute time or money, or you can actually become involved in planning, and deciding how we're going to go about, bringing this about. And that's the bottom line. But the most basic, simple thing you can do is talk to other people, tell them about the show. Also, if you want to help us create this show, you can help us directly by going to patreon.com/creatinganewworld and donating a small amount of money, pledging a small amount of money for each episode that we create. And we would greatly appreciate that. It would help us. It would help us maintain the equipment that we use to create this show. And it would be a way of you showing that you find what we're doing here valuable and exchanging value for value. We would greatly appreciate that. And you can also go to the 12 Visions Party national website, which is tvpnj.org. And there, if you're interested in becoming involved with the 12 Visions Party, the 12 Visions movement in your state, you can fill out a form that says, I'm interested in becoming involved, basically. And there you can find out more about what this is all about. And if you're interested in Mark Hamilton's ideas and what effect they can have on your life, you can find your local Neothink Society clubhouse or group in your state. Does anyone have the what is
form?
it? The customer helpline number?
The member services line?
The member services line number. You can call that number, and they can help you find someone in your state, that is, and that way you can get involved in the Neothink Society if that's what you would prefer to do. And we also advocate that, becoming involved with the Neothink Society, learning about Mark Hamilton's ideas, and applying them in your life, because these go hand in hand.
Yeah,
And,
Bill, that number,
yes.
that telephone number for member services, if anybody wants Neothink literature or information, it's 800-480-2336. I believe that's still the working number for it, 800-480-2336.
Thank you very much, Sage.
Sure.
And also, if anyone has any questions, feel free to contact me. My email address is whunsicker@gmail.com. That's whunsicker@gmail.com. And I just also wanted to mention that this show is a production of Integrated Values LLC, which is a company that Harry Dolgen and I have created together. So I wanted to thank everyone for coming on the show. Thank you, Sage.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Bill, so much for putting it on.
Thank you very much, Larry.
Oh, thank you, Bill, and I'm glad I was able to get on.
And you also, Harry, it just seems you pop up on the far left of my screen. That's why I'm always talking to you, and why I'm always talking to you last of all. I don't know why you always come up there, but thank you for coming on the show.
I'm glad, Larry, you got on, Sage. It's all been very interesting. I enjoyed it. Thanks, Bill.
And I want to thank anyone who views this show, either live or as a recording. And I want to wish you wealth, health, peace, love, and prosperity.